we are finally back. It has been a hot minute since I filmed something, and I have no excuse. It's just life, you know? Sometimes life gets in the way, and sometimes my co-stars just aren't in the mood to film something, and you know, it's kind of up to them when we film. It's their house, I just live in it. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Lauren. If you've stuck around and waited for me to post something, thank you. I'm back. We're back. Oh, it's been a while. It's been a hot minute. Hunter is here as always, helping out with the heavy lifting and pushing stuff off my table. So yay. This video is late. I know it's late, you know it's late. Look, it's been spring for at least a month, okay? And I'm finally getting around to filming my favorite spring palettes. Now, I thought about combining my favorite spring eyeshadow palettes with my favorite summer eyeshadow palettes, but there is a huge difference between those two seasons, okay? There really is. It's been a weird weather year. Weather season. It's been weird here in California, okay? I feel like winter just ended. I finally went outside, I enjoyed some sunshine, and immediately got a sunburn. So, very confusing. I'm the first person to say, put on sunscreen. Guess what I didn't do? Put on sunscreen. I put it on my face, so my face was fine. Everywhere else, though, anywhere exposed to light, you know, I've been in the dark for too long, so wear your sunscreen, people. Today we are doing our top 10, my top 10 favorite eyeshadow palettes for spring. And yeah, I say we just get into this because I have a fantastic stack of palettes. I always like doing this video because it gives me an excuse to kind of rifle through all my eyeshadow palettes and pick out the ones that I want to use for the season and kind of pick out some ones that maybe I haven't gotten a chance to use in a little while. Now, just because it's spring does not mean you're going to see a lot of pastels. You might see some pastels, but for me, the biggest difference between spring and summer is I feel like the colors belonging to spring are a little more lighter and gentler. With summer, I want your loud, bold, neon colors. That's what I want. That's why I decided to do two different videos because it's two different color stories for me for spring. So let's get into this. I have a wonderful pile here of the palettes that I believe really represent spring in a palette. So let's get started. So the first one that I pulled out is the Alice in Wonderland palette from Sigma Beauty. Now, this one I used the other week and was reminded how much I loved this palette. It's a really great performing palette, and I like that the colors aren't too gentle. You know, you've got some great colors on here. And this palette in particular, I think performed really well. I actually brought this palette with me when I went to Disney World, and I was just kind of blown away by how much I enjoyed it. So love this palette. I guess I should say, I'm not sure if all these palettes are available anymore. I think the majority of them are. I don't think all of them are, but I figure in, you know, this day and age, you can kind of find anything, even if the brand itself doesn't sell it anymore. So I've definitely seen this palette pop up on Mercari. So if you are interested and it's not available on Sigma's website, I think you could probably find it on Mercari or Poshmark. But this is my number 10. They're not really in an order, but we're gonna give it a number. So number 10 is the Sigma Alice in Wonderland palette. Next up, I have been enjoying the heck out of this palette. This is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Nouveau palette, and I feel like I actually said Nouveau correctly the first time, and I'm actually really impressed with myself. But this is what it looks like. Now, I have to be a little bit careful because some of the colors have been smashed. So they arrived a little bit broken. I was able to press them back in, but it's just a palette you have to be a little bit gentler with. So kind of something to keep in mind. But I love the soft greens, the soft purple. I just love this palette. It performs really, really well. I do like that you can deepen up the look if you want to, but it is primarily, I feel like, a lighter palette. The shimmers are great just to wear on their own if you want a kind of a more lighter look, I would say, not anything too crazy. I really like finding the palettes where you can use these shimmers as standalones. They don't need anything else. They work perfectly on their own. And this palette is great for that. So I really enjoy this palette. Nouveau, ABH, number 9. Number 8, this shouldn't be a surprise because it is a very similar color story to the one that I just showed you. So that is the Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette. This is another one that I've been enjoying quite a bit. And you know what? I was not going to pick this up when it first launched. There were quite a bit of reviews that were like, oh, all those greens are so similar. But if you've been on this channel before, you know I love greens. So I finally had the opportunity to pick this up. I actually got a Natasha Denona palette in my Beautylicious Lucky Bag this year that I already had. Somebody got this palette that they already had, so we exchanged palettes. It was perfect. And yeah, I really love it. Again, very similar to the ABH palette in the color story. It's a very greeny, light green, spring green colors, but I think they perform really well. This is also another one where I can just wear the shimmers on their own. This one in the corner, what are you called? Marlin? Are you called Marlin? You're called Marlin. I like to just wear on its own. It's such a pretty light spring green. It's very pretty. I really enjoy this palette. I'm surprised it didn't get a better reputation because it performs well. I think it's a great price point for what you're getting. And I really enjoy this for the spring. So Natasha Denona Retro Glam palette is coming in at number 8. Number 7, we have an old classic. This is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde. This is a great palette and it is a great color story. It is leaning into the pastels a little bit, I will say. And I'm not a huge pastel lover, but I feel like you can work around that in here, you know? And this is a palette where I feel like the mattes perform really well as the shimmers. I almost like the mattes of this palette more than the shimmers. I feel like that's the opposite for most of my favorite palettes, but the mattes are just so smooth and creamy. They're really nice to work with. I enjoy using this palette, and this color, Nebula, wait, is it Nebula? Nebula, so much fun. So much fun. I always use a glitter glue with this color and it pops. It's so much, like, so sparkly. I love it. So this is this is the Huda Beauty Mercury Retrograde at number 7. Number 6, this is Sydney Grace's Tiny Marvels palette. This is a collaboration they did with Mel Thompson, who has sadly passed away. But it was such a beautiful palette, and if I can open it, I don't know why that was a struggle, but it really does scream spring to me. It kind of just feels like the colors are just beginning to bloom on flowers, like little buggies are emerging from the earth. That sounds grosser than I want it to, but it in a cute spring way. Yeah. And it's just a really fun palette to play with. Sydney Grace has an amazing eyeshadow formula, so I really do like playing with palettes from them. And this one just reminds me of spring. I mean, I will say this green Mantis is probably the #1 reason why it reminds me of spring. I guess that is just the color. Any sort of light green is reminding me of spring these days. But it's been a long winter, so I think that's fair. Our hills right now are beautiful and green, and they're gonna last that way for about a week before the sun comes and gets them. So this is a beautiful spring palette. It's a beautiful palette for any time, really, but coming at number 6 is the Sydney Grace Tiny Marvels palette. Coming in at number 5, we have the Soul Mane 2 palette from Odins Eye. Now, this is such a beautiful packaging. Odins Eye is known for having beautiful packaging, and this is no exception. It's just, so pretty. And one of my favorite things about this palette is that the colors on the outside match the colors on the inside. So you're getting kind of a true representation of what the palette is. And I really appreciate that. Now, I actually did a video reviewing this palette, and I was so impressed at the way that the colors blended with each other. There was no muddiness, there was no patchiness, the colors performed beautifully. Now, I will say not all Odins Eye's palettes perform the same. Some of the formulas are not my favorite. This is one of my favorites from them. I just think even the mattes go on flawlessly, and the shimmers are gorgeous. It's just a really gorgeous, well done palette, and it reminds me of spring. The color story is a little bit softer, but you still have some deeper colors in case you do want to do something a little bit darker and deeper. You really have your options with this palette, and I just love all the colors. I just think it's a beautiful palette. So this one is number 5. Number 4. Now, I have talked a lot about how I don't love pastels. Pastels just genuinely don't draw me to them. I don't get a whole lot out of a pastel palette. And this is the exception Kind of. This is the Gimme Glow Pastel Dreams palette. And while I will say I love this palette, I will also be the first one to admit I don't use it nearly enough. Now, this is what the inside of the palette looks like, and I tend to go for the shimmers. The Gimme Glow's formula for their shimmers, stunning, out of this world, but I really, truly don't get enough use out of those mattes. So kind of my goal this spring, I think it's only gonna be spring for like another month. We're almost at summer. I know. What is time? But my goal is to pull this one out and use it a lot. I'm gonna use it when I go into work tomorrow. I'm gonna use it kind of for the remainder of the week, I think. But I will probably use it in tandem with other palettes. Now, the reason that I'm putting it on the list, even though I don't use it incredibly frequently, is for those shimmers. And oh my gosh, okay, the Lavender Sky, stunning. But I do like to use this palette in tandem with palettes that have some darker colors as well. So I normally don't use it by itself. I mean, the mattes still perform incredibly well. They just aren't colors that I tend to reach for. Though, Magic Mint is that springy color, right? Can I help you? What's spring to you? He has no opinion. I love Gimme Glow so much. I want to get more use out of this palette. This is a spring palette to me. It feels spring, it screams spring. So I'm gonna be getting more use out of it because I know it performs well. I just need to use it more. That's on me. Number 3. Okay. Number 3 is a fantastic palette. This is the Serenity palette from Cosmic Brushes. Cosmic Brushes is a UK brand, and it is a gorgeous palette. It is so pretty. Now, these colors perform exceptionally well, and I will say I went back and forth as to whether to include this palette on my list because the colors are bright, but you can also go a little bit lighter. It's just a good mix of colors. And again, I was shocked by how well it performed. I think this palette is like $20, $22, $24. It is really affordable, okay? I mean, granted, I had to pay for shipping because I'm in the US, but I freaking love finding a brand that's affordable, that works well. This palette works incredibly well. Beautiful palettes. I actually did a video with this one as well, so maybe I'll link it up here in case you want to take a look at what I did. But this is a palette that I think I probably will end up combining with the Gimme Glow palette because it's got some darker colors in here that are going to look fantastic with the colors in here. So I think mixing the two might be where I need to go with this palette in particular. Now, the dark colors perform well. This purple Pixie, so pretty. I mean, so pretty. But I think, yeah, just using some of these darker colors and then using the shimmers in this, oh my gosh, I can't wait. There's so many options for me to do. I wish I had more eyes. Yeah. Number 2. So this was actually the first palette I thought of when I wanted to do this video. I was like, what springs? Spring. What screams spring to me? And this is actually a new palette. I actually have done a look with this one as well. And this is Beauty Bay's Retro Love palette. This is another UK brand and another affordable UK brand out of the UK that I absolutely love. I love Beauty Bay. Their formula, so good. And this is what the palette looks like. Now, I have been trying to film this video for like 2 weeks. And every time I'm like, okay, today's the day I'm gonna film this video, I pull this palette out and I use it. So I have been getting quite a bit of use out of this palette. And I'm not gonna lie, I have been going for certain colors, the purples in particular, and this kind of square of bluey aquamarines. Those are the colors I've been going for. And I love them. And this color in particular, Magic Moment, is such a beautiful shade. So pretty. And I've been using it, I think, in every look I've been doing. Oh, look, it also has that green. Heartbreak Hotel is that spring green I was talking about. Love it. This is a brand where the mattes perform just as well as the shimmers. It is a great performing brand. I never have any issues with patchiness, and I have very little fallout when I use this palette. I absolutely love Beauty Bay, their formula. You can't go wrong. Okay, and the number 1 palette that I would recommend for spring that I have on my eyes is ColourPop's Aurora Struck palette. I always want to say Aurora Stuck, and I don't know why. This palette though, okay, look, I buy a lot of stuff from ColourPop. I do. I think they are another brand with a great formula, though I will say it depends on the palette. It's not 100% consistent, but this is a palette that I reach for from them over and over again. I can't say that about older palettes, even the ones that have the good formula. Sometimes like they kind of fall to the side, you know? This one does not. This one is a absolutely gorgeous palette that I will use anytime, any day. It's on my face now. I'm super happy with how the look turned out, and I just have so much fun playing with this palette. First of all, the range of colors. You've got your light, more springy colors. You've got this green, Arctic Fox. It's definitely not the same spring green that we've seen in a lot of the other palettes. It's much more sheer, but it is so pretty, so pretty. But then you also have your darker range of colors if you do want to darken something up. It just has such a fantastic range of colors that all perform really well, that there's a look you can pull out of this for whatever mood you're in. If you want something more sheer, you can go more sheer with it. If you want something a little darker, there's something there for you. So I love how flexible this palette is, and I do love that the top 3 rows really speaks spring to me. It just seems very springy. Again, I have a love affair with the purples, but the greens are also gorgeous. This whole row is just fun to play with. And yeah, I haven't had any issues working with this palette. It is really just a fun palette to play with, and I'm gonna be pulling it out a lot during spring and probably summer and winter, maybe not fall. No, probably fall. It's just a great palette. So ColourPop, you kind of got number 1 on this list. This is a fantastic palette. So those are all the palettes that I definitely recommend for spring. Again, I don't think all of them are available anymore, but I know they're out there somewhere. The internet is a big place. Mercari, Poshmark, they all have probably these on there if the companies no longer sell the palette. So if you're interested, definitely take a look. But I would love to hear from you what your favorite spring palette is, and if you think any of these would fall into your list as well. I hope you're all having a fantastic spring. Wear your sunscreen, please learn from me, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!